Hello, my name is Maya Stricker, and in this video I will be talking about Beethoven's Ninth Symphony in D, Opus 125, the Choral Symphony. This was Beethoven's last symphony and is a remarkable piece that is still renowned today due to the long-lasting impacts it had on future composers and the message of peace found in the music. In an interview with Frederick Stock, the second director of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, he describes the Ninth Symphony as a resume of all of Beethoven's achievements. It was first performed in May 1824 in Vienna, and today the piece is still very respected and has been used on many important occasions. Beethoven had long wanted to use the poem Ode to Joy by Friedrich Schiller. After spending much time studying philosophy, in the Ninth Symphony, Beethoven depicts the culmination of his beliefs, and the piece is said to be a representation of his philosophy. The poem Ode to Joy was about the unification of mankind with the themes of peace, harmony, and freedom. This poem was inspired by the French Revolution, and Friedrich Schiller wrote about ending the division in our world, saying that all men shall become brothers. Because of the powerful theme behind the song, it has been used on many occasions and has stayed relevant for so long. It has been played for the celebration of the fall of the Berlin Wall, for Olympic ceremonies, as the official anthem of the European Union, for the Chinese Cultural Revolution, and even was the national anthem in Rhodesia in 1971. At the debut of the piece, Beethoven had already lost most of his hearing and was unfortunately unable to appreciate the spectacle of the symphony being performed. Beethoven still wanted to conduct the symphony, so his wishes were entertained while the orchestra had been instructed to instead follow Michael Umlauf. Without surprise, Beethoven was off a few bars by the end of the piece. The soprano singer, Caroline Unger, had to turn him around so that he could cherish the warranted standing ovation, cheering, and support of the audience. The Ninth Symphony was innovational. Before this, symphonies had been purely instrumental, and nobody had ever utilized the human voice in a symphony. Because of this, the Ninth is often referred to as the Choral Symphony. The first movement, marked Allegro ma non troppo, un poco maestoso, opens with the beautiful soft shimmering strings, and the music grows with the gradual addition of the full orchestra. It builds from descending fifths from the violin that transition into the enormous theme. From the philosophical lens, this introduction could be interpreted as the emergence of mankind. As you listen to the music in the background, envision the stormy emotion that it evokes. It begins in the melancholy D minor, that jumps into an energetic B-flat major, that again returns to the D minor. This back and forth contrast demonstrates conflict, where one part is being challenged by the other. Throughout this movement, Beethoven continually skews the tonic of D minor. In the recapitulation, he brings back the theme in D major. This first movement is in sonata form, with a triple fugue in the development. The movement climaxes with the immense sound from the largest orchestra Beethoven had ever employed. Though the contrast of the major keys introduce conflict, the movement still ends on the woeful D minor. This friction in the first movement is often described as being storm-like. After this grandiose first movement, the second movement only continues to impress with its abounding sound. Beethoven continues to revolutionize the symphony by placing the scherzo as the second movement. The second movement is a fast-paced scherzo marked molto vivace presto in ABA form, moving from a scherzo to a trio and then back to the scherzo. Beethoven, however, makes this even more intricate by creating movements within the movements. Each scherzo is in sonata form. This complex movement contrasts the typical scherzo, which had typically been a light and lively piece of music like a folk dance. It begins in D minor, the same key as the first movement. However, it modulates into C major, which is so distinct because it is the flat seventh of the previous key. The mood of the symphony changes from such a tense and stormy beginning to a more playful mood. The timpani in this section is somewhat unexpected and in irregular places. It brings a feeling of disorder to this playful section. The movement is so fun, but this adds an unsettling aspect. Next, we transition into the third movement, a beautiful adagio. The tempo of this movement goes back and forth between the beginning adagio molto e cantabile and the quicker andante moderato. In the first two movements, Beethoven used double fugues, whereas in the third movement, he changed things up into a double theme and variations. In this lyrical movement, the horns and woodwinds are much more prominent. It begins so softly and slowly in B-flat major, again crescendoing, utilizing descending fifths that expand into the fortissimo theme in D minor. The last variation includes 2 roaring fanfares. After this last fanfare, the movement ends on a tranquil E-flat major. Finally is the famous Ode to Joy theme, in which the human voice is introduced for the first time ever in a symphony. The beginning of this movement is dissonant and chaotic. Richard Wagner referred to this as the terror fanfare. Phrases from the earlier movements are restated and the previous themes are reviewed. The dissonant fanfare returns, but afterwards, the infamous singing begins with the bass soloist. Not only was this the largest orchestra that Beethoven had ever employed, but he also had 4 soloists and a chorus. This movement embodies absolute joy and enlightenment. The chorus sings the words from Friedrich Schiller's poem and are paired with an enthusiastic orchestra, creating the most powerful, resonating feeling of jubilation. The symphony begins with the first movement, embodying the beginning or emergence of mankind. Beethoven uses dissonance and the modulation between major and minor keys to demonstrate conflict and struggle. The scherzo that follows diminishes the storm and becomes more playful, but the unsettling feeling persists. The third movement, the adagio, is beautiful. After the first 2 movements depicting drama in our world, this third movement becomes peaceful, allowing for introspection. This transitions perfectly into the Ode to Joy that embodies triumph and joy. During this piece, Beethoven transports the audience from the scary beginning all the way to the bliss and enlightenment at the end. The Ninth Symphony is such an exceptional piece, warranting all the buzz and excitement it has received. This embodiment of Beethoven's philosophy has resonated around the world, which shows through the countless times this symphony has been used. In the words of Richard Wagner, the last symphony of Beethoven is the redemption of music from out her own peculiar element into the realm of universal art.